The door opened, and she covered her eyes. Not today. It wasn't going to get her today. She didn't want it to get her today. Screaming, she got off the bed, running to the other side of the room and crouching in the corner. Her life flashed before her eyes. All the things she had done, the good times, the bad times, everything. It went on for what seemed like hours. It was like watching a movie, except it was all about her. All she needed was popcorn and a seat, and she would be able to spend all the time in the world there. But soon enough, the idea of the movie ended, and instead there was nothing. Nothing but the feeling of dread as she heard the creature coming. It was walking towards her, the growls and the stomping echoing off the walls of her house, as well as through her head. It was as if it was amplified, being played through the loudest speaker on earth, and that speaker was located right next to her ear. Rose didn't want to see the creature that was going to kill her, lifting her up into its mouth and eating her in one bite. She would rather take the path of not knowing when it was going to strike. She would be able to ready herself and allow the end to come with ease. However, ease was out of the question. Dropping to her knees, the girl started to weep, to beg for her life, to ask whoever was in charge up there to spare her, to make this creature go away to somebody different. It was the most horrible thought in the world, she knew, wishing this creature on somebody else so she would be able to live her life. But Rose didn't want to go like this. She wanted to go her way, in her bed, at the age of 90, with family surrounding her on all sides. She wanted to die in peace. Not like this. Never like this. But there was one thing she kept coming back to as the creature came closer. The one thing throughout the whole event that had been playing on the back of her mind. Rose kept thinking of the fact that she already knew that this was going to happen. The situation had already played out for her in her mind. Rose had grown up as a weird kind of kid. Sure, she had tried to fit in properly, but she got bullied like every other kid that acted different during their school days. It was mostly due to the fact that she claimed she could see the future, and told the other kids what they would be doing in the coming days. She wasn't always right, of course. Sometimes the visions would be off, with her seeing things that never came to pass. Other times, they would be right. A perfect vision to the T. The kids' futures that were right, they wouldn't bother her. They didn't want anything to do with her, even to be bullies. The people who it didn't work with, however, well, you can only imagine what that must have been like for her growing up, saying she has this power, and them believing that she was living some kind of fairy tale that she had made up for herself. So they had decided to be bullies about it, but it didn't really matter either way. The girl knew the truth, and they couldn't take that away from her. So she had lived her life, always looking one step ahead, seeing the future, and avoiding the situations where she knew the bullies would be after her. Of course, there is always only so much bad you can avoid. Last week, Rose saw this event. She saw the vision of the creature coming into her house, the action of her running into the corner, and then it eating her, chewing up her flesh and spitting out the bones. She had done her best to avoid it, but the vision never changed. Whatever Rose altered in the present, it never changed the outcome. It was almost as if it was meant to happen. It was meant to be the end. Whatever her life had been like whatever decisions she had made. Before she was even born, the universe had made up its mind on the way Rose was going to die. But all of that didn't matter now. The power didn't matter. The visions didn't matter. What mattered was right in front of her, staring her in the face with its sharp teeth and its grinning smile. Rose would be its next meal, and that was all there was to it. It opened its mouth, and she said her last goodbyes, mentally thanking everybody who had ever been nice to her. Her mother, her father, the friends who had accepted her gift with open arms and allowed her into their lives. And at last, she stopped shuddering, stopped weeping, and simply waited. Waited for the end. A couple of seconds passed, and the beast got closer, closer, and then blackness. There was nothing. No monster, no sharp teeth, no house, no roof above her head, no open door. Rose was simply standing in an eternal blackness to which there seemed to be no end to. She looked around and waited for anything to happen, even the slightest thing. After a while, she thought that maybe she would wake up. Maybe this was all a dream, another vision produced by the future seeing power while she was sleeping. She was convinced of it. She would wake up, she would open her eyes, nothing would be wrong, and she would be able to live another day before this vision would take place. These thoughts entered her mind and stayed there, and eventually, they started a spark of hope, a spark that ran throughout her body and filled it, eventually giving her a burning desire. She wanted to go home, to wake up in the bed and live another day. Go to her job, do the work for the boss and come home again. Watch a little TV, perhaps a movie or two, have some dinner, and then go to bed. But none of that seemed to be happening. There was only the blackness as the minutes ticked by. But just as she thought it was going to last forever, a voice sounded out across the vast space.
The first test is completed. Bring her out of it.
What? What did that mean? She thought these words, but she didn't have time to come up with the answer. Slowly, the world around Rose faded, the blackness disappearing, being replaced with a light above the girl's head. She looked up at it for what seemed like an eternity. It was a blue light, and made whatever surroundings she could see glow with an almost dream-like intensity. She also discovered that something else was making the room look dreamy. She was slowly coming to the realization that she felt both dazed and confused, like she couldn't solve any problems if they were to be thrown at her, or work out anything that was going on. A small panic started to build in the back of her mind. Where was she? Why wasn't she in her bed at home? What the hell was this place? Questions started coming at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but for some reason, she couldn't answer them, nor cared to. Suddenly, she heard footsteps coming toward where she was. It took her a few seconds, but eventually, she moved her head, slowly, taking a good look at the person. The man was tall. He wore a white lab coat and was bald, or perhaps almost bald. A black beard covered his face, and his eyes seemed to be a blue color. Opening her mouth, Rose spoke the words within her mind. "Where am I?" It was a few moments before he responded, but he spoke in a slow voice. It sounded familiar to the girl, as if she had heard it before. It was like a memory that was long gone, unable to be grasped, like the smoke of a dying fire.
Oh, don't worry, Rose. You are safe here. We are just testing your abilities is all. Trying out this and that to see what you are capable of. Just the basics. Our future is looking quite bright.
The man smiled and walked away. A few moments of silence went by, and then finally, the answers to the questions clicked over in her brain. She didn't live in a house. She didn't have visions of the future. Well, visions of her future. She didn't have any friends. The things she recalled were projections, fed into her brain through a machine. She remembered it all now. The memories of her childhood had been made up. The memories of her school had been made up. She was never a member of normal society. She was born here in this place. Raised by the scientists as an experiment. She had no life. She was simply a pawn in some experimental human genome project. They had given her a power within her DNA, the power to see things, to tell the future, but not her future. Other people's. What she saw in the visions of the beast, they were not of her, but some other girl, screaming and begging for her life. She was filled with an anger upon that realization, and she went to get up, to break free. But she couldn't. Looking down, she soon came to realize that she was strapped to a bed. Sighing with sadness, she gave up her attempt.
Start test 2.
When the scientist said this, she had time to think of how much pain these people had put her through, how she was going to get revenge on all of them for what they had done. And then, it was all over. She covered her eyes, and the door opened.